including Brezhnev, that rose as its beneficiaries under Stalin, was approaching retirement. Brezhnev's own values in later life were more aligned with those the revolutionaries used to call bourgeois than those his predecessors had espoused. A joke widely circulated at the time had Brezhnev's mother asking anxiously about his personal collection of expensive Western cars. "But Lenya, what if the Bolsheviks come back?" Living standards were up. A previously acute housing shortage had been ameliorated. No national or social groups were threatening revolt. The 1977 Constitution, affirming the success of the building of socialism in the Soviet Union, claimed that a new historical community of people, the Soviet people, had come into being. To be sure, the Soviet Union still had problems: a slowing economy, an unwieldy bureaucracy showing little desire or capacity for reform, periodic outbursts of discontent with Soviet tutelage in Eastern Europe, difficulties with the United States and détente, and in the Soviet Union itself, the emergence of a small dissident movement with little support in the wider population but close ties with Western journalists. After Soviet troops went into Afghanistan on the 24th of December 1979, an international boycott campaign tarnished the Summer Olympics that proudly opened in Moscow in July 1980. The West had made a totalitarian boogeyman out of the Soviet Union during the Cold War, equating communism with Nazism as the antithesis of Western democracy, and one of the tenets of this theory was that a totalitarian regime, once in place, was immutable and could be overthrown only by external force. But that idea seemed less plausible when, after Stalin's death, the regime not only failed to collapse, but also showed itself capable of radical change. By 1980, totalitarianism, although remaining a powerful and emotive image for the Western public, had lost its appeal for scholars, American political scientists Stephen F. Cohen and Jerry Huff being among its challengers. Even in conservative quarters, hopes that had been cherished for more than 60 years about the imminent collapse of the Soviet regime were being quietly abandoned. Summing up the consensus at a conference of mainstream American Sovietologists, Robert Burns noted that all of us agree that there is no likelihood whatsoever that the Soviet Union will become a political democracy or that it will collapse in the foreseeable future. An important text of U.S. Sovietology, published by political scientist Severin Bialer in 1980, argued that it was time for the United States to give up vain hopes of regime change and accept that the Soviet Union was there to stay. In a similar spirit, the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. finally decided, after decades of ignoring the existence of the Soviet Union in response to émigré and Cold War pressure, to bite the bullet and give the Soviet Union its own entry in the library's card catalog. This was an eminently reasonable move and, as virtually everyone in the Soviet research community agreed, long overdue. But in practice, the library might have saved itself the trouble. Within a decade, as it turned out, there would be no Soviet Union to catalog. Shortest history, 1924 to 1991. When I first encountered the Soviet Union as a graduate student, just before the 50th anniversary of the October Revolution, I would not have expected to have been one of the scholars writing its obituary on what would have been its 100th birthday. Its lifespan turned out to fall short of the statutory 70, just a few years longer than the life expectancy of Soviet citizens born at the end of the Soviet era, 67, which was almost twice the life expectancy of those born at its beginning. Historians' narrative